You know what's weird? You were told you were special and you worked harder than people expected, but you ended up to afford the same life as the generation before you. If you were born between 1981 and 1996, you didn't just grow up during change. You grew up inside a psychological experiment. You are the first generation raised on optimism and launched into instability. The first generation promised opportunity and handed uncertainty. The first to carry student debt, digital identity, economic collapse, social media comparison, and burnout, all at once. And if you've been feeling tired in a way sleep doesn't fix, anxious in a way success doesn't calm, or behind in a race no one explained, this is for you. You are not weak, you are the burnout generation. Millennials were raised on a very specific formula. Work hard, get educated, be adaptable, stay positive, success will follow, stability will reward you. The system works if you do. You believed that, not blindly, not naively. You organized your life around it. You studied, you interned, you built resumes before you had real jobs. You collected credentials, you followed advice, you delayed gratification. And then, just as you stepped into adulthood, the ground shifted. The economy collapsed in 2008. Entry-level jobs disappeared. Housing prices climbed. Wages stagnated. Student loan debt ballooned. The cost of living rose faster than your paycheck ever could. But here's the psychological twist. The messaging didn't change. The world changed. The rules changed. The math changed. But the narrative stayed the same. If you're struggling, you're not trying hard enough. If you're overwhelmed, you're not resilient enough. If you're behind, you made poor choices. So instead of questioning the system, you questioned yourself. This is where millennial burnout really begins. Not with long hours, not with hustle culture, but with internalized blame. When effort no longer guarantees stability, the nervous system doesn't relax. It stays alert, it starts scanning, it starts calculating risk. That's why millennial anxiety doesn't always look dramatic. It looks functional. You show up, you perform, you deliver, you smile. Inside, you're running background calculations. How long could I survive if I lost this job? Can I afford a mistake? What happens if I slow down? You don't rest, you hover. And then social media arrived, not just as entertainment, as comparison infrastructure. You didn't just grow up online. You matured under observation. Your 20s weren't private. They were documented, curated, archived, measured in likes, views, promotions, milestones. Before social media, comparison was local, a few friends, a few co-workers, a neighbour. Now your reference group is global. Someone your age just bought a house. Someone launched a startup. Someone is travelling full-time. Someone is getting married. Someone seems calm. And you compare your internal confusion to their external highlight reel. This is the psychology of the burnout generation. You are constantly exposed to evidence that you are behind, even when you are not. And over time, that exposure changes your identity. You stop asking, what do I want? You start asking, how does this look? Careers become brands, personalities become content, even healing becomes something to optimize. Millennials didn't invent personal branding because they're narcissistic. They adopted it because visibility became survival. In a gig economy, in freelance culture, in algorithm-driven opportunity, if you're invisible, you're replaceable. So you learn to package yourself, promote yourself, perform yourself. And performance is exhausting, especially when it never ends. There is no off switch in a world that lives in your pocket. Emails follow you home. Notifications interrupt dinner. News cycles update every hour. Economic uncertainty refreshes in real time. Your nervous system was never designed for this level of constant stimulation, but you adapted. That's the defining trait of millennials: adaptability. You survived analog childhood and digital adulthood. You learned new software every year. You pivoted careers. You reinvented identities. You normalized instability. High adaptability looks impressive from the outside. Inside, it feels like never landing. When you're always adjusting, you rarely feel secure. When you're always upgrading, you rarely feel complete. Burnout for millennials is not just physical exhaustion. It is existential depletion. It's waking up tired even after 8 hours of sleep. It's losing interest in hobbies you once loved. It's scrolling for relief instead of resting. It's feeling guilty for doing nothing, because productivity was moralized in your generation. Being busy meant being valuable. Side hustles were celebrated. Overachievement was normalized. Self-care became a checklist. Even relaxation had to be earned. And here's the paradox. You worked harder than previous generations in many measurable ways. Higher education rates, longer hours, more digital skills, more certifications. But you received less security in return. Job loyalty disappeared. Pensions faded. Healthcare became expensive. Housing became speculative. Retirement feels abstract. So your body learned a silent lesson: nothing is guaranteed. And when nothing feels guaranteed, the nervous system stays in low-grade fight or flight. Cortisol lingers, muscles tighten, sleep becomes shallow, rest feels risky. That tightness in your chest, that Sunday night anxiety, that constant sense of, I should be doing more, that isn't laziness. It's a survival response to prolonged uncertainty. Millennials are often labeled entitled, sensitive, burned out too easily. But burnout is not fragility. It is what happens when high effort meets low reward for too long. There's another layer here that rarely gets named: attachment. Many millennials were raised in households navigating divorce, financial strain, dual income stress, or emotionally overwhelmed parents. Love was present but often distracted. Approval was earned. Stability was fragile. So you learned to perform early. Be good, be impressive, be independent. Don't be too much. Don't need too much. That pattern doesn't disappear in adulthood. It shows up in work, in relationships, in friendships. You overgive, you overthink, you overfunction. You fear being replaceable. You fear being exposed as not enough. And in a hyper-competitive economy, that fear finds reinforcement. Imposter syndrome thrives in millennial culture because the standards never stop rising. Even when you achieve something, the goalpost moves. You get the promotion. Now you should buy property. You buy property. Now you should invest. You invest. Now you should optimize. There is no finish line, so you feel behind forever. But here's something important. The exhaustion you feel is not just personal. It is generational. It is systemic. It is contextual. You were handed a world accelerating faster than any generation before you. Technological disruption, economic volatility, climate anxiety, political polarization, digital overload, and you were expected to navigate it flawlessly. Yet despite all of that, millennials are also the most psychologically aware generation in modern history. You normalize therapy. You speak about anxiety and depression openly. You question toxic work culture. You set boundaries with family patterns that were once unquestioned. You are not passive victims of burnout. You are conscious participants trying to break cycles while surviving them. That dual role is heavy. You're healing childhood wounds while paying rent. You're redefining masculinity and femininity while navigating dating apps. You are unlearning hustle culture while trying to afford groceries. Of course you're tired, but tired does not mean broken. Millennials are not the lost generation. They are the transition generation, the bridge between industrial stability and digital chaos, between emotional silence and psychological literacy. You feel more because you are aware. You question more because you saw what unexamined systems produced. And yes, awareness can become another pressure. Analyzing every trigger, labeling every response, turning healing into another task to complete. But the fact that you're asking these questions at all matters. The psychology of millennials is not weakness. It is adaptation under pressure. It is resilience without applause. It is exhaustion earned honestly. If you've been feeling like you're behind in life, consider this. You are building stability in an unstable era. You are choosing conscious relationships over convenient ones. You are prioritizing mental health over silent suffering. You are redefining success beyond survival. That takes time. And if this resonates with you, you're not alone in it. The burnout generation is not burned out because they don't care. They are burned out because they cared for too long in systems that rarely cared back. But here's the shift. Burnout is not just a collapse. It's a signal. A signal that productivity cannot replace purpose. That visibility cannot replace connection. That achievement cannot replace safety. You don't need to optimize your way out of exhaustion. You need security. You need community. You need rest that doesn't feel like a threat. And that begins by understanding that nothing about your fatigue is random. It makes psychological sense. If this made you feel seen, share your experience in the comments. What part of the millennial experience resonates most with you? The anxiety, the career pressure, the social media comparison, the burnout. And if you want to explore more about the deeper human patterns shaping our lives, subscribe and stay with us. You are not behind, you're adapting in real time, and you are far more resilient than you've been told.